Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast, live once more on Google Hangouts. So apologies for all the blunders and terrible slurs that Barry in particular is going to make over the course of the next 45 minutes. I'm Tim Danton, Editor-in-Chief of PC Pro, and with me, as I say, I've got Barry Collins.
Good evening, Tim.
Good evening. And also Darien Graham-Smith.
Hello to you all.
Hello. Right, so let's just dive straight into it. Darien, I think you've got the first topic because we want to talk about HoloLenses.
Yes, we do. Well, actually, it's a little bit bigger than HoloLens. It's actually the Windows holographic operating system, which is a thing which we've heard about in name, but we don't really know exactly what it is. We haven't sort of had any code to play with. It's the thing that underpins the HoloLens. It's the whole idea of an operating system which is designed for augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D virtual worlds kind of thing. It's been developed alongside Windows 10. It's got some sort of connection to the Windows 10 framework. And at Computex in Taipei this week, Microsoft has announced that it will be opening up that operating system to manufacturers of virtual reality headsets and, well, and one presumes software and experiences, as they say. And this is potentially interesting because I think it's the first that we've heard of a sort of standard central system for virtual reality. I mean, obviously there's standard platforms like the Oculus Rift and so on, but the idea that very much, I mean, exactly as Microsoft very smartly did back in the olden days of the IBM PC, where they're like, we don't care what hardware you've got, we will provide a common operating system, which means that you can have common, experiences, common software across all of that. That's what they're looking to achieve now with Windows Holographic, trying to make it the standard platform for 3D virtual, as I say, or augmented reality hardware. And I think that's pretty smart and quite exciting.
And so are you actually expecting there to be like a slew of new headsets that emerge maybe a year down the line?
Yeah, it's really difficult to talk about kind of the timing and what exactly is going to happen, because it's one of those sort of chicken and egg things at the moment where there isn't the killer application for VR still isn't really with us, and arguably it won't be until there's more of a market sort of thing. So, but I did think one thing that Microsoft did very well this week was they fleshed out a bit more about what HoloLens could be and how augmented reality could work. Because we've seen in the past, demos of how an architect might use it to visualize something before building it. But Microsoft put out this very, very slick and, to me, quite exciting video this week about they showed a manager wearing an augmented reality headset going into an empty space and using augmented reality to fill it with furniture and with seats and with stands and so on to prepare it virtually for a conference or for a launch event or whatever it was that she was doing. And I thought, this actually looks really good because you're able to use your hand controls to. There's a lovely scene where she's pushing a virtual. I think it's like a virtual wall or something, just pushes it along the room, and as she walks, the virtual thing moves as you'd hope it to, and you can just shove things aside.
Well, there you got the killer application, surely. Being able to push a wall along.
You're being cynical, but I really thought actually it started to look like a useful business tool. And if you're not in the business of rearranging rooms, which is fair enough, not everyone is, then there was also the second part of the video. The manager realizes she needs to get some more people in to help, and so they use their augmented reality, or I think in this case virtual reality headsets, to just zip into the same virtual space, and they can see representations of each other, and they can all see the same virtual space. And there's a line in the narration which says the team forgets that they're not physically together. And I thought that was actually really quite exciting because right now, you and Barry and I, we're all physically remote, but we're kind of working together. But there's a limit to what you can do with video conferencing.
I think it's fair to say that we're very close.
It is very fair to say that, yes. But
sorry,
maybe
I interrupted your flow, Darren.
maybe we should save our protestations of love for PC Pro podcast after dark. But I mean,
not working any later than this.
I do remember actually, one of the key features of the meetings that we've had in the office in the past was we'd sit in like Tim's office, and there'd be a whiteboard, and there would be displays of magazines, and we would we'd look at how things worked, and we'd write things on the board. And when we were trying to brainstorm features, like Barry would kind of stand up in front of a big what do you call it? That paper thing with
Flipboard.
Flipboard, yes, thank you. And we'd kind of write things down, and it was all very visual and very physical. And I thought that was very valuable. I've said before, I don't like to talk on the phone very much. I don't really like to do things in that detached way, but I could totally get into a meeting where we're all in our disparate spaces, but we're all actually seeing and experiencing the same things. And to me, like, just this 1 3-minute video transforms the HoloLens from kind of a bit of a blue sky, who knows what idea, to something I'm quite excited about as perhaps the future of business.
And it's actually, it goes beyond that, doesn't it? Because so I was speaking to one of my sons. What are you drinking, Darien? Just is that G&T?
Yep.
Very nice.
What have you got? I saw you taking a swig of something.
Yeah, well, I'm living up to my Scrabble reputation by having a coffee Scrabble mug. But yes, I was talking to one of my children yesterday, and he was saying that once he was playing Minecraft all day. This doesn't reflect well on me as a parent, but anyway, he was playing on Minecraft for a very long time, and every time he felt a bit hungry in real life, he would actually just eat a bit of cake in the game. And then he said, yeah, do you know what? I actually felt a bit fuller after that. So, there's this divide that's happening between reality and the digital world. Who knows what the application could be? Maybe this is the ultimate slimming aid.
That's what you took away from Microsoft's sort of, business transforming
you laugh,
reality
but
vision.
Think about the things that actually sell. It's sex, but it's also slimming.
Sex and slimming. Where do I subscribe to that magazine?
The only 2 things.
We're in the wrong business now, aren't we? Because we're certainly not peddling slimming, and anybody watching this on Google Hangouts will, probably have some doubts about the former.
He said, reaching for his G&T.
I'm not sure the dieting fad for Minecraft is the way forward, but I do think Minecraft is the killer application for the HoloLens. And the demos I've seen of that have looked fantastic. If they get that anywhere near as impressive in real life as the demos look on video, then actually that amount of money that Microsoft paid for Minecraft a couple of years ago starts to look very cheap indeed if they can use that to flog headsets to kids. Because I hear you, Darren, on the virtual meeting thing, but that to me feels a bit like those sort of £8,000 holodesk things that you see in ICI and the big companies, but is fairly niche still. I don't see it becoming a widespread thing in business. I think there are very few, very limited scenarios where you would use that kind of virtual 3D environment for business meetings. I'm very skeptical of the whole VR headset thing in general. I think it's this year's 3D TV, but I think if there is a hope for it, I think it is gaming and Minecraft in particular. But the problem at the moment is just the hardware is fantastically expensive. HoloLens looks like it's going to be even more expensive than the previous setups, let alone the cost of the PC to run these things. Until they can get the price down to some consumer-friendly 100 quid or less level, even with Minecraft behind it, it's not going to fly, and that's the huge challenge for Microsoft.
I think what you say about gaming is absolutely fair enough. Gaming has always driven, well, not always, but gaming has driven a lot of personal computing innovations. Just in the 80s and 90s and so on. And that's the reason why you wanted the graphics cards, why you wanted the bigger, flashier monitors. At the consumer level. But I think I'm nowhere near as downbeat as you are about the potential of the HoloLens, about augmented reality. I mean, I see a world where another thing which happened in the Microsoft video, by the way, was that the big boss turns up, and the big boss happens to be Japanese and says something in Japanese, and a speech bubble appears next to her with real-time translation into English. And I thought that was, very neat. That's technology that we have now, more or less. But I think when you get used to augmented reality, and I know it's not going to be the enormous clunky headsets, it's going to be something that looks a lot more like Google Glass or like my own regular spectacles. It's going to have to get there. But when you have the possibility that you can, for example, walk down the street and see notes and information and so on, and have all this stuff overlaid on your view of reality. I mean, I'm thinking of, directions, for example, that you can go, I'll meet you at such and such, and rather than having to check your phone or your watch or your TomTom or whatever, there'll just be a little marker just on the pavement saying you turn left here or whatever. All of that stuff. I think once you get used to that, you will not be able to live without it. You really won't.
The terrible. You just opened up my eyes to the terrible future of advertising, where I'm walking along and there's this offer bounds out from the shop telling me that tops are on sale at half price today. Actually, but Mark Walsham, it must be Walsham, has put in a query via the questions, which anyone can do who's watching this live. He's pointed out that safely critical or hazardous jobs would actually benefit hugely from VR. So the example he gives is being able to control systems in nuclear environments or just difficult environments. And I can absolutely see that, because actually where I've seen Google Glass being used, or a version of Google Glass being used in reality, admittedly still a demo on a show floor, but this was actually something that's happening, is in industrial environments where you need to have some way of, in this case, recording the event, but also you could overlay that with extra information. I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very fair point, but I think it's niche. It's that kind of industrial sector that's it's not doesn't make this a mainstream product, and I'm still struggling to see what the mainstream pull is for this stuff. I mean, this kind of Darien's given us a vision of the Tom Cruise film from years ago.
Minority Report. Yes, it always comes up.
But it's exactly what you're driving towards. And we were here, and I know in a sort of to a lesser extent, but HP and whatever were doing this with smartphones about 5-10 years ago, and it was going to be the big thing then. And yes, the form factor is certainly more appealing when it's glasses rather than holding the smartphone up and looking at Burke on the street. But I tried several of those things, and the appeal is just, the information is just meaningless and trivial, and it's just, it's never caught on, that idea. I don't see it.
I think, and in no way am I trying to ensnare you into an embarrassing future, but Barry, I want you to predict how many sales VR headsets are going to have and augmented reality headsets are going to have. Do you think it's, like, who was it who said there's a worldwide market of 6 computers? It's someone from IBM, I think. So I want you to say something like that for me, please, Barry. We'll come back in 2 years' time, like we always do, and we'll prove you wrong.
I honestly think there will be. We won't even be talking about VR headsets in 4 or 5 years' time.
We will.
I think like it's exactly the same as 3D TVs.
No.
Just fall away because
I'm not going to let you. Sorry, Barry, I'm not going to let you get away with the 3D TV thing. That was an absolute flash in the pan that was pushed by the industry.
No, hang on. I remember, Tim, you said it was going to catch on, and you bet me that I think it was 2 years' time from the date of that podcast when we recorded it, that there would be 3D TVs for under £500.
And I was right.
There was right. One, and it was
being remained. Nothing to watch in them.
But the point is that the 3D TVs was a massive push from the industry. Barry, you and I went to CES, I think, for
about 4 years on the spin. They had them every year,
and that's the only place you ever saw these VR headsets. But
and it's the same reason why VR won't take on, because there was nobody creating content for 3D. I mean, Sky gave it a go with the football and movies. Nobody wanted it died. And it's the same with these VR headsets. You look at the games being developed now, there's a very limited title. None of the big developers, none of the big games titles, with a possible exception of Minecraft and Microsoft, are behind this, because the audience is vanishingly small. PC gaming, as niche as it is, without having a £2,000 PC and a headset strapped to your head, there's no game developer in the world who's going to put significant effort into that market.
This is why I think Windows holographic is significant, because at a stroke now you can. It's basically it's slashed the cost and the complexity of becoming a VR developer, because now you've got a platform, and they showed in the video. It's a good video actually. I should dig out a link and share it
I think
somehow.
you're sponsored by the video.
Yeah.
Well, the video is one of the best things I've seen today, and I've been watching Curb Your Enthusiasm pretty much non-stop, so that's how good the video is. But no, there's a bit where it kind of, I don't know what she does, just some kind of gesture and pulls up like a 3D start menu, which has kind of standard widgets and standard sort of icons. And just the fact that there's a standard framework that you can build to and you can develop for, and that you can develop VR expertise, and it will be transferable, and that you've got the platform, you've got the API, all of that just kind of brings it so much more in reach, I think.
Okay, so we're going to go for predictions. Barry, how many units in 2 years' time? How many VR/AR units will have shifted?
Units? Oh my Gartner. I reckon there will be 1 or 2 headsets in the market in a couple of years' time. One of those may well be the HoloLens, because Microsoft will thrash at it until they get it right. They'll have at least 3 stabs at it, like the phones or Surface, until they finally wave a flag, because that's what Microsoft does. So I reckon there'll be 2, possibly everyone from Sony.
So you think we'll have HTC will have dropped it?
Yep.
And we'll be down to Microsoft, and who was the other one you said? Sony.
Sony, I suspect.
Okay, and you're not going to give me a figure.
It's just I constantly rant at analysts for making up figures off the top of their head, so I could do it, but I won't.
Okay, I'm going to put you down as 50 units then. All right, Darien.
Hello. What, you want me to guess how many VR? This is the most ridiculous exercise in die rolling. Well, I mean, I do think that there probably won't be many operators in a couple of years' time, but I think there may well be several, all using the same Windows holographic platform. The way things are looking, it looks like the kind of market where you can have your HTCs, and you can have whoever jump in and make their take on HoloLens, just like we've got lots of smartphone manufacturers doing their take on Android. And I think it will take longer than that for it to become mainstream. But I think there will be millions of VR headsets or AR headsets selling in, where we know, like 2018, 2019.
Okay, so I'm going to put you down as 10 million.
All right.
Okay, I'll take 50 million. Okay, Barry's got 50, you've got 10 million, I've got 50 million. We'll see who's closest.
You're in charge of remembering that, Tim. I don't want to have to explain it to Google now, so you'll have to...
Yeah, okay. All right, so just briefly, thank you again. Mark Walsham has again just written in to say about you could actually use Glass's format for football sporting events. So you could view replays, you could view betting information, get a different angle on the action, which again, I think it is that idea of layering on the extra information that could it'll make your life better, cynical Barry.
Maybe that's not what Barry wants. Maybe he's happiest when he's unhappy.
Well, we should. Barry,
it's a bit deep.
Is it your dad who's called Jack?
Yes, I was on the questions.
He's in there again. He's saying, I'm still trying to get my head around Tim's son feeling full up after eating virtual cake. But if you can share any insight about why Barry's so unhappy now, please, Jack, that'd be great. All right, and Martin Finden also has asked us, any plans for Sasha Muller to join the podcast? I should have asked him, actually, because I did see him today. And so next time I see him, Martin, I'll grab him and see if we can do so. We have got Shona Ghosh. Ghosh. I know. Okay. Shona Ghosh, or Gosh, no relation, coming in to next week's podcast, next fortnight's podcast. So there will be 4 of us in this brave new world. Okay, let's move on to the next story, which is, Barry, something again Mark raises, ad blocking.
Yes, so this has been a long muted development from the Mobile Network Free, which they've sort of confirmed this week, where they are planning to block adverts in the mobile browser at the network level. So this will be a trial. This will be an opt-in trial that will take place on one day between the 13th and the 20th of June, according to a story in the BBC. And Free said basically, I mean, we should point out at this point that Free has a partnership with a company called Shine, which is owned by Free's parent company. So there's a bit of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours going on here. But Free has apparently decided that its poor customers are paying too much in mobile data charges for adverts that they didn't ask for. So it's going to give them the option to block those adverts. It's not yet precisely clear which ads they're going to block. It's not going to block every ad, but it seems to be targeting the ones that, according to Free, degrades the customer's experience or intrusive or unwanted or irrelevant ads. Now, that pretty much covers every ad on the planet for me. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to distinguish what's wanted and what isn't. And this will apparently block around 95% of the pop-ups and adverts on websites. But it won't include pre-roll video adverts, sponsored articles, and in-feed promotions on social networks like Twitter and Facebook. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. It sounds more like they're going after those flashy jump-up ads on websites that annoy all of us. Personally, I think this is a terrible, terrible idea.
You think it's a terrible, terrible idea? I was all ready to to jump in and say, "Yay!" I mean, it's not just about data, although data is a very real issue for many of us. It is very annoying when service providers act like we all have unlimited data, because we don't. But it's also about usability. The number of times that an advert or some kind of ridiculous design, which has obviously been dictated by the needs of advertisers, makes a mobile page unusable. It's just they're cheating us, basically.
Well, there's two issues here. One is that those adverts are what pay for the content you're watching. So you block off publishers' revenue streams, and they're slim enough as it is. Trust me, we all know the figures. Then who's going to pay for this stuff? Who's going to pay for the stuff that goes on websites? The second issue is, and I think the more serious issue, is who the hell gave Free the right to become the gatekeeper of internet content? And this comes back to the overall topic of net neutrality, that the ISPs and providers are meant to provide us what's served on the website without prejudice. And this is Free taking a commercial decision to block other people's commercial models, and seemingly at a win, with no way to get yourself blacklisted or whitelisted. It's completely down to them what they let through and what's exposed to their customers. And I find that the most terrifying part of this, that a network provider is suddenly becoming, judge and jury is the wrong word, but the gatekeeper to what we see on our phones.
I see what you mean. But I mean, it seems like you're saying that the business model that advertisers have chosen, or that people who use advertising have chosen, which incidentally I don't like, as anybody who's read my column in this month's PC Pro will know, because I think there's kind of no consent involved. There's no transparency. There's very little accountability. It's just they will do what they're going to do, and they'll say that's what we're doing because this has to be funded somehow. This is the way we've decided to fund it, like it or lump it. But but it's also not just, it seems like you're saying that, we should respect that, but then we shouldn't respect a different business model, which is Three's imagined, projected business model, where they say we are the network that will save you data by making decisions on your behalf that will cut out these annoying adverts. I'm not sure you can have it both ways.
Well, it's not, but it's not within Free's gift. It should not be within Free's gift. I mean, America is drafting laws on this, and I think we should have them over here. It should not be within Free's gift to decide what you see and what you don't see from a website, because then we enter the whole world of commercial interest, and we in this country we have 4 or 5 massive ISPs that basically, certainly on the broadband level and increasingly on mobile, where there's even fewer options now, who are the gatekeepers to what we see on the internet. Now, if I don't know, and this is purely hypothetical, but Sky, for example, decided to slow down or block access to rival broadcasters' content or adverts, would that be acceptable?
Well, the market is supposed to sort such things out, but I've got to, got to be realistic. The market actually tends to just make things worse for everyone, as far as I can see. I don't think there is an easy answer. I mean, I guess it comes back to I just do not like adverts, and I feel like the principles are impossible to enforce either way. I think it's too airy, it's too idealistic.
The principles are really easy to enforce. The principle is you show everything that's given from website. You're mere conduit, and trust me, the providers will grasp that mere conduit defense when every time they're asked by the government to intercept some information or block information, the ISPs all go, hey, hang about, we just serve what's on the servers. We don't interfere with content. That's the abiding principle here. You guys are just here to provide a service to get us from A to B. You do not interfere with what comes down the pipe, and I think that should be the overriding principle. It's very simple.
Well, but they're not really getting us from A to B. They're getting us from A to a big, enormous interstitial that jumps up and steals focus and has to be X'd away before you're allowed to see the next bit of the animated nonsense that you have to sit through before you can read the story.
Don't visit those websites. It's dead simple. Don't give your customers those websites.
If you can find me a website, well, I mean, again, this actually, I did say this in my column. If there were a better way, if there were websites that said, instead of advertising, we're going to charge you a tenth of a penny to read this page, I would be all over that. But it just doesn't seem to happen.
Mike Bookham has come in with a suggestion, which is that you could actually make it so that ads didn't count towards your data allowance. So effectively, the only way that's going to work would be if the advertisers paid the likes of 3 to actually use the data in the same way that we pay for data. He's suggesting, couldn't that be a halfway house, Barry?
Which is exactly where we're driving here. And for free to say, oh, we're doing it on behalf of the customer, we're just saving you data, guys. The advantage for them here is they don't have to serve that data as well. This is a massive burden off their networks, a massive bandwidth reduction on their networks. And this is the motivation here. And so, you may well be right that the next logical step for that is, hey, you want us to show the adverts that you've already paid for on this popular site, you've got to pay us as well. And so, again, they're becoming the gatekeepers and deciding who sees what and who doesn't. Very, very dangerous path to go down, in my view.
But what's the alternative? Because we are at the point where it can be extremely unpleasant to look at certain sites on your mobile.
But you can use client software to block adverts on a mobile. I've got nothing against client software. That's you as a consumer making a decision to say, I don't want this. It's when you start getting to the network level where 1 or 2 or 3 big companies have the control to say, we're not going to show any adverts from your website because for whatever reason we deem them to be annoying. So your revenue stream is gone, but we're going to take your content, by the way, and serve it to our customers who are paying us £30 a month.
Hang on, but can't I just, as an informed consumer, can't I outsource that to my network provider? Can I not just say, I don't want to be bothered with this, so I'm happy to pay 3 or whoever it might be to clean all that stuff off, for me?
Like I say, I think that the entire principle of network providers scraping out content is wrong.
What about
other than for content that is clearly illegal?
What about if someone set up a proxy that did exactly the same thing, and in fact might even be owned by the same company that operated the network, but it was an opt-in system, so it wasn't so the network would serve everything to the proxy, and then you would say to the proxy, strip out all this stuff.
Sounds like a workaround for the same kind of thing to me, but and from the publisher side of view, the principle is it's a contract you enter into with a reader. Basically, you get this content for free in exchange for us displaying adverts. In the same way that if you turn on to ITV now, we're going to display adverts. You don't have to watch them, but we're going to display 5 minutes of adverts for every half-an-hour programming. That's the unwritten contract you enter into with the broadcasters. It's the same for website viewers. This is what funds, and Darren, you've made a lot of your income over the years from publications and companies who this is their model. This is And for the vast majority of people,
no,
for the last 10 years, you have.
no,
For the last 10 years, you have.
Most of my income has come from print, which is a very different situation. But I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at
No,
here
it's not. Print is exactly the same.
It's not. It's not. You can very, very easily turn the page and ignore the advert. That's the issue. And when you buy the magazine, the adverts are already just there in place. They're not interfering with your experience. But what I was going to say was, I mean, you said it was all right for an individual, for a client, for a customer to make the decision on a case-by-case basis what to block. And I think that's where things get awkward, where it doesn't quite fit together. Because if you as a client, as a customer, have the right to make that decision about the websites that you're accessing, then you surely have the right to delegate that. If you think that the customer has an obligation to watch the adverts, whatever they may be, then I don't necessarily agree with that principle, but I can understand it. But if you want to cut it, just draw a line between the network operator and the customer, I'm not so sure.
Okay, let's draw a line there. I think on that one. Before Barry hits Darien, we don't want that.
Well, Tim's advertising in the background of this video. I'd also point that out, by the way.
Sorry?
Tim's advertising PC Pro in the background of this video, and that's intrusive, and I find that objectionable.
This is
quite an old issue of PC Pro, isn't it?
This one. This is from the very launch issue of PC Pro. So this is part of the marketing campaign back in 1994. So. Yes, that we're a bit more risque then, I think. A new kind of computer magazine is born, and let's just say there's several white mice with tails wagging in the background there.
Just to finish that point, when Darien was saying the ads aren't too intrusive in the magazine, in those days the magazine was about 500 pages, and of which about 3/4 of it was of adverts, to the point where at one stage the post office actually refused to deliver it because we couldn't get it through letterboxes.
Although that is true, you do know. I mean, people bought the magazine partly for the adverts, because before the internet, that was your catalogue of what you could buy and how much it would cost and where you could get it from. So those were welcome adverts. They weren't, they were very much the opposite of what we have now, where the print equivalent of a modern online advert would be someone comes along and spray paints their message on top of the feature you're trying to read.
Yes, I'm not sure anyone would pay for that, would they? Okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is actually Periscope doing something quite interesting. Is everyone aware of Periscope here? So we are talking about the Twitter-owned service, which is basically live broadcast video. So you download the app, and then you can either be the person broadcasting, so maybe you want to show your guitar skills, maybe you want to share your trip to Rome with friends and family, I don't know, or maybe as Twitter does when it's sharing its fiscal results, its financial results, it broadcasts it on Periscope. And so you can either be a broadcaster or you can be a viewer at any one time, all via the one app. It's quite neat, and one of the things that they are talking about is a really interesting way to stamp down on the commenters, who let's call them trolls. I guess that's the best word for them. So people who aren't actually really trying to add to the debate. Maybe they're spamming, maybe they're just being abusive. And Periscope have come up with this way of doing it, which basically involves... It's very difficult to describe this, by the way, when I'm just looking at Barry's very cynical face on my monitor. it's
like my normal face.
That's the one, yeah. Anyway, so they come up with this new method whereby if someone reports it, you can do like an instant poll on other people that are viewing the stream to say, is this spam? Yes, no. Oh, well, I didn't think it was that abusive, and get a result that way. So, and what I like about this is that this has been a scourge of the internet for 20 years. Probably actually since the days of bulletin boards. I'm sure you had this kind of problem: people coming in and trolling and hiding behind a kind of anonymous username. And this is a great way to kick out that antisocial element.
Well, yes. So what's the debate exactly? Well, I know what the debate is. I'm trolling myself by asking that. It was summed up, I think, very neatly. The concern by Adam Banks. I don't know if you guys watching and listening to this know the name Adam Banks, but he's been around the block a few times. He used to edit Computer Buyer. He used to edit Mac User magazine. He's a proper, he's a publisher's publisher kind of guy, and he was very 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 unimpressed by this move. He said the whole point of the whole reason why freedom of speech is protected is because people need the right to be able to say things that the crowd does not approve of. Now, I did not agree with that, but that was his argument, and I think it's worth picking apart.
Well, it's definitely an interesting argument. But if I don't know. I suppose if it is a good enough view, then surely it would have a chance of survival, even among that polling system.
Well, it depends partly on what the system is. If it's just three down votes and you're out, then it's very open to abuse. But
well, let me say, I'll say exactly what Periscope said on their blog post on Medium. During a broadcast, viewers can report comments as spam or abuse. The viewer that reports the comment will no longer see messages, blah, blah, blah. When a comment is reported, a few viewers are randomly selected to vote on whether they think the comment is spam, abuse, or looks okay. The result of the vote is shown to voters. If the majority votes that the comment is spam or abuse, the commenter will be notified that their ability to chat in the broadcast has been temporarily disabled. Repeat offences will result in chat being disabled for that commenter for the remainder of the broadcast. So that's what we are talking about. It sounds like maybe not 2 or 3 people, Darien, but maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. I actually think it is a real problem. I mean, Periscope's an unusual thing though, because Periscope, obviously, that particular grouping of people are often only together for the duration of that particular video stream. I think there are kind of other issues with kind of systems like Facebook or Twitter, which have more persistent relationships between poster and postee, where someone might, either, as happened recently, an MP might say something and they get a deluge of abuse from people who wouldn't otherwise have paid any attention to her, or somebody who for whatever reason has a load of trolls and troublemakers who follow them and send them abuse over a long period of time. And this doesn't really kind of work for that situation so well as it does for the real time. This guy just said this, do you think we should boot him for it? But nevertheless, I think it's a very good solution to that, because you can't automate that kind of thing. All you can do is just say, is it the sort of thing which the man on the Clapham omnibus, or the modern version, the man on the Periscope stream, would be likely to find offensive?
Yeah, I sort of agree. I think it's a neat solution. The only thing is, I've not used Periscope a great deal, but they tend to be fairly short kind of bursts of clips, and if the 30 seconds you want to watch is interrupted because you're getting moderation messages saying, oh, are you offended by this? I would just switch that off, I suspect. I think it's a very peculiar kind of person who wants to be the moderator for that kind of stuff, but these people exist. Lord knows, Wikipedia. But it's I personally, I wouldn't bother with it myself.
Have you seen that we've got 2 people now chiming in saying who feels the need to use Periscope?
Yeah, well, I have used Periscope occasionally, but just to really, it's to watch Twitter-related things. So they're, like I say, they're financial broadcasts. And then when I've had it installed, I've had a look at what's around. But actually, typically, it's very, very dull and very difficult to find anything. There isn't yet a way to hone what's out there, so you can get directed to the best bit of content. It's a bit like Twitter itself, you could argue. It doesn't quite found that way to distill the best.
Yeah, it was actually. I've had precisely one entertaining and positive experience with Periscope, which is when we had very, very long-term readers of PC Pro may recognise the name Dave Stevenson. He and his wife came over for dinner, and we hand-made pizzas. We had the dough and we had the sauce, and we did all of that, and we streamed it on Periscope just because Periscope was brand new and it just seemed like a fun thing to do. And we actually had people who were interested in food. We had some Italians just tuning in and giving their opinions and saying, put some more oregano on there, and don't put too much of this on, and don't forget to oil the foil before you before you put the bread down, and that was actually kind of fun. But it was such a random thing, and it was such a, it was just of that moment. And every time since, I've gone back to Periscope to see if there's anything I'm interested in. Yes, as you say, Tim, it's just nonsense. It's just, this is me, skateboarding up a street in Seville or something.
Yeah. Well, it's me playing a guitar badly, So
Where's this guitar hate coming from this week, by the way? I've not
is that
played
the second
guitar
time
on
I've mentioned it?
Yes, it is.
I do apologise. No, it's just because I remember watching Periscope and this chap was strumming away on his guitar, and it wasn't an amazing experience. Okay, well, we're not giving ourselves much time for our hot hardware of the week, so I think we should. Darien, do you want to fire the opening salvo in defence of this product?
Well, yeah, if you like. This product is the Core i7-6950X processor, which is obviously Intel's newest high-end baby. Those who are keeping up with Intel's ridiculous high-end processors, which I sincerely hope is none of you, will recognise that as Broadwell E, which is to say it's not Skylake. Broadwell is old news, but they always release one last hurrah for the previous generation architecture with an E suffix, which is just, it's like the super beefed up best chip you can possibly get from that architecture. And in this case, the Core i7-6950X is a real beast. It runs at some, I don't know, I think it's 3.3 gigahertz or something, which is quite ordinary these days. But it's got 10 physical cores, which hyper-threading obviously doubles in certain situations to 20 virtual cores, and 25 megabytes of cache, which is not only more cache than any other Core i7, it's more cache per core than any other Core i7 has previously had, and it is ridiculously powerful. John Bray's been benchmarking the thing, and he's been sort of, it's not only is it a generation on from Haswell-E, but actually they've been tweaking turbo boost, and it's ridiculous. It's like 50% faster than the previous enthusiast class, super top end multi-core chip. So you've got to say, fair play. Intel, has not. Don't want to be mean, but they haven't been yielding big performance improvements generation on generation for the past few years. This does actually move things forward by quite a bit.
Oh yeah, well, it destroyed the graphs on our in PC Pro this month. I can tell you that much. Much to Paul Duggan, our designer's ire. Because we actually did a scan PC as well. We've got a scan workstation in the magazine. It's actually, I've got to sort out some PDFs after this podcast. Otherwise, there won't be a magazine next issue. But and that it surrounded it with a stellar cast. So you've got Quadro M5000 graphics. You've got the fastest M.2 SSD as well. So that's just to make it. You got, and I think offhand it was either 16 gigabyte or 32 gigabytes of RAM. But anyway, everything that you could possibly do to build a fast system, Scan has done. It's incredibly quick. So Mark Walsham has said, do we really need that much processing power for a consumer product? I use a Core M laptop. Yeah, absolutely. For general tasks, for this kind of thing, I don't need that much. But we are talking about a PC that's probably 20 times faster at completing certain tasks. Thanks to this amazing amount of firepower in the processor. Not everyone needs it, but some people will take advantage.
Yes, well, you see, I'm with Mark Walsham in two ways. First of all, I'm broadcasting to you live from a Core M laptop right now, and it's absolutely fine for what 99% of
as you said that
humans need to do.
As you said that, we got a bit of the audio feedback where it clearly struggled to keep up.
That's not the processor. That's my awful Wi-Fi. Let's put the blame where it belongs. But no, I mean, the thing is, yes, it's true that the Core i7, I've forgotten what number it was already. It's such an anonymous thing.
6950X.
6950X, yes, thank you. It's true that is a phenomenally fast processor. And it may well be 20 times as fast as a Core M4 doing certain things. But the Core i7 6700K which is a more normal processor with a more normal number of cores, i.e. 4, that will do the same things, like 15 times faster than this processor. There are than this Core M, I mean, obviously not than the extreme one. There comes a question of whether you really need to squeeze out that extra performance. Who needs it and what it's for? Now remember, this is not a Xeon. This is not an enterprise class processor. This is not designed for your big data crunching. There's a whole different class of processors with even more cores and even bigger caches, which are for that. This is aimed specifically at the enthusiasts market, at gamers and people wanting to run. Do people still run folding at home? Well, no, yes and no. It's not really aimed at workstations. I mean, it's a way of getting that incredible performance into a workstation. But again, Xeons are for workstations. They're designed for that.
Intel may have said that, well, we want Xeons to be in workstations. So in our recent workstations group test, all the manufacturers were veering towards the Core i7s. So I don't think there is that kind of that strong division that you can say Xeon workstation, Core i7 is for enthusiasts.
Well, I'll tell you one thing which does sort of muddy the waters, which is this processor costs £1,400. That's the CPU alone. So it's actually, I haven't looked this up, but I bet you can get Xeons rather more cheaply than that. So actually it is kind of up in that workstation arena, regardless of what they're calling it and kind of which architecture it's using.
Yeah.
How much was that scam PC, Tim?
Off the top of my head, I think it was about £4,200.
Right. Okay. Well, not going straight.
You proofed that.
Yes, I did. You're right. Absolutely right. That's right. John was making a point about it being a bargain at only £4,000. So, yeah, it goes without saying. It's just an insane amount of money to pay for a processor or a PC. Unless you have very specific tasks that need doing. Even gaming. I mean, God alive, there can be very few games that require a 10-core monster to run smoothly, and even in the fallbacks on the graphics card to some extent. So,
yeah, no, I fully agree. I'm kind of baffled as to what the target market is for this thing, and I think it's more chasing what they call the halo effect. It's more about just thinking, about being able to say Intel Core i7s go up to this unbelievable level of performance, so you should all be on the Intel train because to get performance that's in that class, that's from that pedigree, even though your actual processor will not have very much in common with this Core i7 branded thing.
Okay, but I for the record, I'm hot. I think this product is sorry.
Not hot for processor.
I'm going to vote. This is a hot product, just because I think it is. Sometimes it's great to celebrate just something that's incredibly fast, that does break through some barriers, and I think this product really does. I think it absolutely needs a supporting cast of very high quality components, but why not celebrate? I mean, just let me check who it is. Mike Bookham says, I want to see low power consumption improvements over increased performance on processors. And absolutely, I think a lot of people do, and especially on laptops. And we should probably say that the thermal design power of this chip is actually the same as the previous generation as well, which had 8 cores.
It's 140 watts.
It is indeed. So in that sense, you could argue that they have done that. But actually, the whole of Intel's message over the past 3-4 years, it feels like, has been about, more performance per watt. This is just about more performance. Let's throw our clappers in the air and say hooray.
Well, yes and no. I mean, to a point. Mark Wilsham mentions, where is it? I've lost his comment now. He says, will they be bringing 10 cores to a mobile platform? And I think the answer is no, because the more cores you have, obviously every core is going to draw some power. At least it's going to involve more complexity. It's going to make things more expensive and more difficult to manage. And adding more cores is kind of a last resort way of building in more power. It's not actually, it's not at all sophisticated. It's not, it's not a great new architecture. It's the opposite of improving efficiency. It's just like kind of throwing more resources at a problem. And the fact that they've had to go up to 10 physical cores, to me, actually, it's a little bit embarrassing if that's kind of the way that they're having to scale, because they can no longer get those generation on generation performance improvements any other way. But although I say embarrassing, you would hope to see that, but also maybe it means that they've done such a great job. There is now literally nothing else to strip away and no more improvements to be gained. All the same.
Well, the thing for Intel is where's the competition coming from? I mean, I'm not an expert on the chip market by any means, but AMD is just so far out of the game now that Intel has the entire market to itself, to the point where it can release these chips at £1,400. I mean, even by Intel's standards, that's about £400-500 more expensive than the sort of region chips we've seen previously. That is just a company milking a market, knowing full well that if you want the highest performance chip and you need it for some very specific task, there's only really one company to come to. And Intel is now completely boxed into this market almost, where it's got the desktop and laptop market pretty much to itself. Obviously a big player in servers, can't get into mobile, basically retreated out of mobile. But it's going to face no real serious competition in the markets it's in. It can't break into any other market. It's a very much a siloed company right now.
Yeah, although I feel obliged to point out that the way that they're looking to get into mobile, as we know, is through the back end, so powering the services that mobile needs. So, for example, 5G modems is one of the things they're looking at, isn't it?
Mm.
So.
That's a convenient marketing message from Intel. Yeah, that's the way we're going to come in. Forget all that stuff we said for the last 10 years about taking the clients.
Okay, as I did last time, I'm going to open it up to the floor. So rather than Barry, myself, or Darien saying hot or not, if you could just take a couple of minutes, anyone who's watching this live, to say whether you think this product is hot or not, then I will do via the use of mathematics. I'll work out whether it is or not. Whilst we are waiting for that, I'll just one tip here from Ryan Thomas, going back to talking about ad blocking. He said he experimented with using Pi-hole, so a Raspberry Pi based proxy, to block ads, and pages took much less than half the time to load on his admittedly slow tablet. So that is another way to get rid of those pesky ads. Okay, has anyone voted? Martin has voted hot. Martin Finden, that's one hot. As I scroll down the panel, I'm struggling to see if anyone else.
Mike Bookham has said.
Oh, not hot.
Okay. And how can a processor be hot? Which it's an old joke, but I'd just like to say, max this thing out, take the heatsink off, put your finger on it, and you will discover just how hot it can be.
We've got another cold coming in from Mark.
I think Mark Walsham's been pretty much on the ball tonight, I've got to say. Fair play.
Okay, you just like his sunglasses in his little avatar pic.
He's always at me on Twitter trying to get me to buy a Stratocaster. So we can't ever really.
Okay, I think we are going to call it there. Barry, you're not, aren't you?
Yeah, very much so, I'm afraid.
Darien?
Yeah, sign of the times. I never thought I would call the fastest processor I've seen cold, but it is. That's what it leaves me.
Okay. All right, so I think we've got in total, that means roughly twice as many, actually almost 3 times as many nots as hots. So I'm going to declare that the hot hardware of the week, because I can. No, well, bad news, Intel. You didn't get the hot hardware of the week. They'll be gutted, I'm sure. Okay, so unless either of you guys have anything else to... Oh, Phil Abrahams. Come on, Phil. Phil.
This is how it's going to keep going. This is like Eurovision voting now. Going to be here for the next 2.5 hours, seeing if it shifts.
Go on. One more for hot. I think that sways it for hot, surely. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for watching in and for taking part. Thank you for everyone who's been listening, and thank you also even to Barry and to Darien. Until our next time on the PC Pro podcast, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.